All right. Uh, Hello and welcome to the KubeBuilder controller runtime and controller tools meeting for Thursday, August 27th, 2020. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded. So, bear that in mind and don't say anything you don't want recorded for all posterity. So looks like we just have two items on the agenda. And they're both from Alvaro. So Alvaro, why don't you take it away?
Yes, so the first item is the deprecation of I believe it's called new fake client function, which creates a new fake client without taking a scheme as an argument and then using the default scheme from Kubernetes. So today this thing is marked as deprecated, and because of that, someone created a pull request to remove it, and I would like to keep it because while I understand the value of having a new fake client with scheme, it's not really clear to me what value we get from enforcing that you have to pass around the scheme. I've personally never used a custom scheme, and so far this works for me. Yeah. What do you think? So I don't even really know where this thing is deprecated, except it's not good to use globals. I get that, but for the scheme, in my experience, it seems to mostly work.
I think there's two parts to it. I think it may have been deprecated as part of just the general deprecation of fake client, that just with the indication that we need to overhaul fake client a bit. And I think the second was that people ended up using CRDs and then being confused as to why the fake client wasn't working, not realizing that they needed to pass in a scheme. And I think that may have contributed to it as well. I think we can just hold off on that for now and just put it under the category of fake client needs an overhaul, but we're not gonna move on removing anything for the moment. We should probably have a comment that's like, this is not a deprecation of removal necessarily. This is a deprecation of the current interfaces will probably be overhauled.
Okay, so the notice actually explicitly says deprecated, use new fake client with scheme. So it's not part of the general fake client is deprecated.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if that's the case, then I think it's just it was the latter where people were, I vaguely recall this, people were using the fake client a lot and not realizing that they needed to pass in a custom scheme. I think it ended up being just that.
Can we then maybe instead try to improve the error in case this is being used with something that's not registered on whatever scheme ends up being used? Tell people, hey, you need to add this to the scheme.
I think we can do that. I think there's a few things we can do around that area. But if that's yeah, I think we can probably keep that around.
Okay, cool. As I also have the second topic, I will start with this. So today we basically have it hard-coded in the manager that if leader election is enabled, always uses a config map for that. And people want to be able to use different things, most notably there's some new resource for this. I forgot the name. I think lease it's called. Yeah, and today this isn't possible. And the question is a bit how we move forward with this. Because on the one hand, it's totally legit to want to use the lease resource instead of a config map. On the other hand, we need to be very careful to not break existing users that currently use a config map. So yeah, one option I could imagine is that we just make this configurable, but keep the current default forever, as to not silently break users. It's not great because then we are forever stuck with a non-ideal default, but I can't think of a better alternative. What do you think?
Yeah, that's kind of where I am. I think the only way that we could change the default is if we had like a very long deprecation period, or we had some sort of thing where like it ended up panicking if you didn't explicitly, or returning an error rather, if you didn't explicitly configure it or something. Like I think probably the thing to do here, how did core Kubernetes do the switchover? Yeah.
Actually, it's possible to use a strategy where you use multiple things for a transition. However, if we do that, we need an extremely long period because sometimes people jump controller runtime versions. So that would be an option. So you can basically say you want to use a config map and a leader lease, for example, or lease.
Yeah, I think probably that's the only really say, because like I think we probably do want to change the default eventually. So I think maybe just like get the ball rolling on that now. Print out a warning message or something. I guess if we're changing the default, just put something big in the release notes that's just like, for a few releases, that's just like, by the way, if you skipped versions, please use one of these intermediate versions during upgrade, and just have a real long switchover period.
Okay.
And
so
have a note in the
go ahead.
Oh, yeah, and have a note in the code that's like, definitely do not remove this overlap unless you really, really, really know what you're doing, and it's been, 6 months to a year or something.
Yeah. Okay, so basically default to config map plus lease, add a note in the source code saying we need to keep this for a very long time to be very sure that everyone who upgrades eventually ends up defaulting to the strategy. And on top of that, for the people who know they can do that, add the possibility to explicitly configure a strategy.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
When did Kubernetes introduce lease as a stable option, or a stable-ish option? Do you remember?
I think it's pretty long ago, like 1.11, 1.12, 1.13. Everyone should have it, even the ones that use managed kube at this point.
Okay, yeah, that was mainly my question. Okay, so I think we're pretty good to just execute on that plan then.
Okay.
I have one question, which maybe we don't want to do, but something I looked at just temporarily a little bit ago, which is, so operator SDK, we've had this leader for life, leader election approach that seems like it covers different use cases, and maybe you would use lease versus leader for life for different reasons, but it seems like leader for life has some validity. So I'm curious, I was going through controller runtime trying to see if I could plumb a leader for life mechanism into the existing exposed APIs for leader election. It seems like it's basically not possible. So I'm wondering if, as part of this, or maybe separately, it would make sense to make controller runtime handle more generic leader election implementations somehow.
Yeah, I mean that would probably be useful. I feel like if there's a point where it's like really not possible to implement something interesting like that in controller runtime, there's an area where like I consider that like kind of a bug or a deficiency in our code base. Can you like detail the rough edges or whatever in a issue or something?
Yeah, it's been a while, so I can't remember what the problems were off the top of my head. But if I get back to it, I'll definitely do that.
Is there a way to? As I wonder, Joe, if it would be as simple as if there was a way to just turn off leader election the way it's implemented by default. Because I mean, leader for life is a nice like drop in, 3 lines of code, independent, or it can even as a pattern, it could in theory be used as like an init container or something totally external for somebody who is, writing their controller in a different language or something like that, and could take advantage of that. So I don't know, is that an option? Can you right now just like, hey, don't use leader election and provide your own?
You can do that. I think what I was running into is that right now, controller runtime has some nice hooks to let you say, do some things before I elect a leader and do other things after I elect a leader. And so because of like that functionality, I was trying to get the leader for life implementation into like kind of in the middle of those things. I think it's totally doable to do leader election outside of controller runtime, but then you're either doing it before everything or after everything.
Yeah,
Okay.
I like you can do stuff like, if you're running both webhooks and the controller in a single binary, you could have, you'd have everything runs webhooks, but only the leader runs controller, for instance, or something like that. Yeah, so definitely file that issue, and we can see where the problem is and how we can address it.
Cool. Yeah, we'll do.
All right. Does anyone have anything else? Looks like no. In that case, happy Thursday, everyone, and I'll see y'all in a couple weeks.
Thank you. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Thanks, Sally. Have a good day.